All right, our countdown is done. I think it is time to rock and roll. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome officially to the second Axie Developer Chat. I couldn't be more excited to be bringing you yet another one. The last one of these we did was in June. It is now October 4th, so time has certainly flown by, and we've got a lot of things to discuss. I'm Zyori, going to be hosting this panel again, and today we've got faces you'll recognize. It's Psych Out, it's Jiho. Psych Out, we're going to start with you this time. How are you, buddy? It's good to see you back here at this Dev Chat.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I'm great. I'm happy to be back, to show our faces to the community. We have so many new community members who I guess might only have seen the fake Twitch stream that's been live here with me, Jeff, and you. But now we have a chance to be live and talk about what's happened and what's happening in the next coming months together.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm feeling great. I'm excited to be here. I'm ecstatic that we have so many amazing community members. Looks like we're about to hit 10,000. We're 50 away. We're at 9,950. It looks like, okay, we're now above 10,000 people watching. This is really surreal. So yeah, I'm blessed and I'm honored to be here today with everyone, each and every one of you.
The hype is absolutely real. So much to talk about. AXS staking is now live. SLP has stabilized. The AXS token has been moving. Of course, we are going to wrap up the stream today with a little bit of a leak coming, so certainly something to stay tuned for all the way through to the end. Jeff, let's start this thing with an update on users. Daily active users, I want to hear about it. I hear that we're close to breaking 2 million.
I was just looking at the numbers. I believe that we have crossed 2 million. It's either way, it's super close. Yeah, it's there. We have 1.5 million Android users, so it's amazing. We're gaining around 100,000 new community members each week. So it's something to keep in mind as we grow. Like the people entering, they might have only been around for 1 week. So
wow. Yeah, a lot of education to be done there. And I know this has been reiterated a lot of times, but way ahead of expectations. How you feeling these days, Mr. Growth Lead? I mean, job well done, I guess. Still a lot of work to do, but like 2 million daily active users in Axie Infinity in the first week of October 2021. Never in our wildest dreams did we think we'd hit that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we there is nothing to be satisfied or happy about. We just need to keep pushing. It's definitely a sign that we're on the right track. Yeah, it is great. It's surreal to see.
All right, well, let's jump right in. First question I want to tackle is about staking. And folks, for some of the older users or players of Axie, maybe a couple of these first questions will be a little bit simple in nature, but we want to knock them out of the park. For anyone that doesn't have AXS, rest of the Axie community, or doesn't really understanding what staking is, can we get a definition here? Can we get an understanding of why AXS staking is so important to the ecosystem, even if you're not somebody that's holding on to a lot of AXS right now?
Yeah, I think I'll take this. So when people are staking their AXS, what it means is that you are locking up your tokens for a period of time, and you're signaling to the market that you have faith in the Axie Infinity ecosystem. So what we want to do then is reward those people who have long-term faith in Axie with new AXS tokens. And it also means that those who are staking the AXS token, they will be able to vote on governance issues and also be able to claim other rewards than just AXS in the future. And that includes what is in the treasury. Now, of course, the staking dashboard that we just released, it's a very early version of it. There will be more things to do in the staking dashboard. There will be more tasks to do for people to claim rewards. And for those who have been reading up on the white paper, there is something called the Axie score that we can get more details on later. But yeah, it's just the very early beginnings of it. And we have a lot of tokens that we will be distributing to those who are staking. So that we can incentivize people to to lock up and to signal to the market that they trust in Axie and that they believe in the ecosystem in the long term.
And at this point, we have a substantial amount of AXS locked up. Is that a good thing? Is there like any downside to staking and having so much AXS locked up in the protocol? When I say locked up, I mean you can withdraw, I think, is it every 24 hours is the cooldown or something? So it is possible to get it out of the protocol. But are there any other broader implications here? Like, do we want as much AXS staked as possible? Is that kind of the goal?
I think there are good things and bad things about having too much staked, but in general, I like that there is a lot of AXS tokens staked. But of course, there needs to be some tokens on the market so that there is liquidity, so that other people can buy it, and there also needs to be tokens on the market so that people can spend it on breeding, for example. Now, whether or not AXS is going to be a prerequisite to breeding for the foreseeable future, I guess we'll see about that. But it's a way to show people that you are a long-term believer. So I definitely think it's important that we have the staking feature enabled.
Gotcha. Very exciting. I also want to ask about the APR, the return rate. When staking first dropped, it was over 200. It was sitting at like 250% for a little while there. Now that it's been out for a few days, I think we're down to like 160% APR. Still really impressive numbers by any conventional standards, and even by modern day degen DeFi standards. This is amazing gains for your AXS. Talk to me about the sustainability of it here. Can we handle paying out these giant rewards? Do we have enough AXS in the bank, Psycho?
So I'll take this one.
Okay.
So basically, when Axis was designed, along with Delphi Digital, we set aside a large amount of the Axis tokens to specifically issue through staking. So we have a large number of tokens. Around the APR. So basically, for the first month, we've set staking rewards to be 2 million Axis tokens, right? So the APR will drop, right, as the amount of Axis staked increases, right? This also happens when people are restaking, right? So it should drop over time, but the rewards have been designed to be quite juicy, especially in the early days. Regardless almost of amount staked. Even if, let's say, 75% of the supply is staked, the APR will still be around 70%. So
still pretty good. And do the rewards taper off over time? Like you said, 2 million in the first year. Does that lessen in the next years?
It's actually 2 million in the first month. And we're working on an updated issuance schedule with Delphi right now. We have it. Just tweak a couple numbers and we'll release that. My ETA on that is actually this week. So.
Oh, very exciting. All right, more information to come.
Yeah, I think it's important for also people who are asking about the sustainability of it. We are considering this like a campaign to also get people onboarded, like more liquidity, more AXS tokens onto Ronan. So it's good for us that there is a lot of value on our own network. So as we start adding more and more features there, like the DEX and other features.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly where I wanted to go next. Like, how is staking connected to the DEX? Are these things interconnected? Like, is AXS staked at all connected to liquidity for the exchange? Or do they just kind of feel similar because they're both locking up tokens?
Yeah, it's a different type of staking. So for a DEX, I mean, you need to provide liquidity. Now, this is like more on the DeFi side of things. I would assume that we have a lot of new people to crypto here. So who maybe don't understand the concept of a decentralized exchange and what it means to provide liquidity. So at a very high level, when you are adding liquidity to a decentralized exchange, you need to provide both sides of the trade to the DEX. And that would be like ETH and AXS, for example, if that's the pair that's being traded. So that's a different matter, another way that potentially can be AXS can be used and staked for.
So right now, like the staking with AXS we're talking about, that's single token staking, that's separate from the Ronan DEX. Let's maybe hone in on the DEX a little bit more because we've been teasing it a lot. Jiho, I think you tweeted yesterday or the day before, staking is cool, but the DEX is mission critical. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Maybe talk about if you have any timelines on the DEX. I'm sure people would love those leaks, but maybe just talk about the ins and outs of it a little bit. What's the DEX going to do for like your regular everyday axie user that's just grinding SLP?
Sure. So the DEX is going to unlock our new phase of growth. It's going to make easy to use. Right now, there's Infinity and Ronan around much more easy to use. Right now, there's a lot of friction around breeding, right? Where you want to breed, you have to go to a centralized exchange or an exchange on Ethereum and buy SLP tokens and then transfer them over to Ronan, right? This is causing a lot of friction. This is like last year, right? Like when we had a lot of friction on Ethereum, it slowed down our growth. Ronan, having our own DEX on Ronan will get rid of a lot of friction and make it so that we can grow faster, and it's going to supercharge our economy. That's the basic idea behind the DEX, right? So we're super excited about it. We're working on it. There's a lot of progress that I'm seeing. Actually, the staking launch did unlock a key portion or a key aspect of the DEX. So that's one little hint that I'll give. So yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's, I guess, broadly, right? If one way to think of it is it's going to supercharge and build up a lot more liquidity, right? So this may, for example, make the SLP price more stable. So yeah, it's going to be really important. I think it's going to be one of the most important launches that we ever have as a protocol.
To add on to that, for newer players who have no preconception of what a DEX is, basically what it just means is that the marketplace for Axie Infinity will be expanded with different tokens such as SLP, such as AXS, and others that we won't disclose right now. So another small leak there. But the idea is that you will be able to trade different assets without having to move over to Ethereum, to move over to Binance, potentially, unless you want to do like massive trades, for example, or want to do a different type of trading. So we are basically trying to reduce the barriers to start playing Axie and to trade, so that you can potentially use Ronan network for all of your needs.
It keeps more of it in the Axie ecosystem. It gives us more ways to lock up tokens. It saves us gas fees. It sounds like the Ronan decentralized exchange is going to be a win across the board for the average user. Man, I'm excited about that. I'm not going to lie. Every time I go to buy a new Axie and I have to swap some of my AXS that's on Ronan on the bridge to mainnet to turn it into ETH just to bridge it back to Ronan to buy an Axie, it does feel a little weird, fellas. Although now I'm wishing I hadn't spent so much of that AXS on Axies and just held on to it now that we're seeing this kind of price action. Any thoughts about the breeding formula? I know you mentioned it earlier, but I've seen a lot of recent comments now with AXS mooning so hard. I mean, I think we passed $150 per token today. Potential to alter the breeding formula again. I guess that's something that we're always monitoring and always considering changing if a change needs to be made.
Sure. So right now, the breeding fee is right. It can be very volatile because in an ideal world, the portion or the proportions of the breeding fee would be fixed, right? So there would be, let's say, a certain percentage of AXS tokens would be used for the breeding fee. A certain percentage of SLP tokens would be used for the breeding fee. We don't have that right now. The engineers say that it will take some time to implement, but it is possible in the future, especially I believe with the DEX. So we are definitely really excited about making the breeding fee a little bit more predictable for our player base. Right now, it's not like that, and yeah, we may have to adjust things as needed. I will also say though that as we mentioned in the article that we put out a couple of weeks ago, we are very bullish on future player growth. We think that we are going to be onboarding millions and millions of players in the coming 24 months. And in order to accommodate these players, we're going to need a lot of Axies. So it is okay to have a little bit of a supply glut of SLP, like a little bit of over minting right now is not necessarily too bad. So. But that said, we're always looking at the economy and seeing if there are ways to balance it and help our players more.
Right. it's a lot of factors to balance, and one of the questions that I think you kind of just answered, though, has been coming up recently. What is the ideal target price for SLP, or is there one? And I guess one thing that I always want to reiterate to these folks is that remember that SLP only gets created when you guys play the game. Right? SLP is not one of these tokens that has a fixed supply. There wasn't like an ICO. We don't have a treasury of SLP that we can just tap into if we hit hyper growth and more needs to be released into the market. So this concept of like needing to stockpile a little bit of SLP before a growth cycle, there's actually some merit to that, right? Like that is sort of a key requirement to keep all of these different forces in balance with each other.
Yeah. So I want to kind of iterate or kind of start with 4 kind of core concepts that I think are really important to understanding SLP. So number 1, right? The only way that SLP can be created is through gameplay, right? By playing Axie Infinity. So each SLP is actually the result of time and effort and skill spent in game, right? Number 2, so the only way that an Axie can actually be created is by burning SLP. So each Axie is actually proof that somebody played Axie Infinity for a certain amount of time with a certain amount of skill. So number 3, when there are new players to Axie, right, the only way that they can actually get onboarded is by buying Axies from other players, right? So this means that we actually need to think about future demand for Axies and SLP when actually balancing the SLP economy. And then number 4, right, so long-term sustainability will actually rely on a combination of growth, new sources of demand for Axies, as well as external organizations coming in and subsidizing play to. So yeah, these are the 4 principles that I think are really important for all players to understand when it comes to SLP, when it comes to the economy. In terms of a certain target price, I think, we want this to be a free market, right? So the price of SLP in the long run will be determined, right? It's kind of derived from, okay, how badly do people want Axies, right? How fast are we growing? These are some of the things that are going to determine the price. We prefer not to do a target price, but we do, we want to make sure that also the economy is helping and doing well for the people that rely on this game.
Right.
So.
I think generally we see stability as a good thing, right? In aggregate, long term, the goal is to try to make things a little bit more stable, not see these crazy 100% swings in SLP or AXS once the ecosystem and more of the Axie universe is kind of deployed, right? I think that's what we're always working towards, but hey, we're an alpha, right? So there's still a lot of steps to be made. I think we touched on this in the last one of these dev chats actually a couple months ago, but the question keeps coming up. I see it on Twitter every day. When / will there be other ways for me to burn SLP? A lot of suggestions about the ability to re-roll stats and burn SLP that way. Had some people suggest betting on your matches where you could burn SLP. Talk to me about SLP burning mechanics outside of breeding Axies. Is this on the priority list? Are we going to see upgrades? Are we going to see re-rolls? When can I start releasing my Axies into the wild, Jeff? A couple of these rascals are ready to go out on their own, I think.
Sure. So I'll start. I guess I'll start this question. Right. So we've always believed that crafting is going to be a really important part of Axie Infinity. We came from the CryptoKitty community where there was just a huge overpopulation of cats, right? So long term, we know that there have to be a lot of alternative or other demand sinks for Axies, right? So this might be releasing your Axies for crafting ingredients that you then use to upgrade your Axies, right? Your body parts will be able to be upgraded to level 2, level 3, maybe level 4. So I think it is really important to create new sources of demand and sinks for Axies, and by derivative, because each Axie is created with SLP, that would also mean more sinks for SLP. But I think we can also be creative. So yeah, we're not going to promise, but it's also something that we're looking at with the upcoming launch of Axie Infinity Origin, the new gameplay or the new battle system. But yeah, I think like basically the thing that I will say is that we've been thinking about an Axie crafting and sync mechanism since 2018. We're thinking about it a lot. You can see the early articles from like September of 2018 where written about it. So it's really important, but it can't be rushed, right? I think a lot of people they're making actually interesting suggestions. I will say, like they're like, oh, like you could do this to burn SLP, you could do this to burn SLP. A lot of these are actually very interesting suggestions, but they're just not things that can be rolled out very quickly. So yeah.
Yeah, our pipeline's been pretty full. Again, we've talked about this before as well, but the last growth spurt we had, it was a little bit more than a spurt. The word exponential gets thrown around a lot, but we really did experience true exponential growth for a little window there. And it kind of messed up our servers a little bit, right? We weren't quite ready to scale that big, that fast, and that has reshuffled our roadmap a little bit to make sure that we're prepared from like a back-end technology perspective for this next growth spurt. This next jump to add another 0 to the daily active users number, right?
Yeah, I'll touch on that a little bit. I think in the last dev chat, I was very clear, maybe even too clear about that people need to have some understanding with what's happening here, because what we're trying to make here is actually never been created before. And that means that we can't rely on existing infrastructure stacks. We actually need to make everything ourselves. So when you look at Axie at a whole, you can say, okay, we're making the game. But at the same time, we also have to make the distribution channel for the game. So, you can't get Axie on the Apple Store. You can't get it on Google Play. You need to go to axieinfinity.com and then download and do all of that stuff, right? And then on the back end of that, again, we also need to make the infrastructure layer for Axie Infinity, and that includes the blockchain, that includes the DEX, and that includes all of these things that maybe isn't as apparent for the end user or for the players who it might seem like sometimes that we're wasting time or that we're focusing on the wrong things. But from our perspective, like these are the building blocks that need to be in place so that we can actually go to market or to distribute our game at the ideal time. So that means that even if we double down and let's say that we started releasing Axies a little bit too early, for example, or we added plenty of burn features for SLP, the price would potentially rise. More players would start to begin playing the game, but they would potentially churn out or stop playing because the price would fluctuate too much. And you get this point where people who come in, they have the expectation that the gains or the price of SLP should be super high all of the time. So you get a little bit of a disconnect between the new players and the old players who have seen, how long it takes to build up that steam, and then you come in with a different set of expectations. So what we're trying to do now is to explain it very clearly, like these are the expectations, these are the constraints that we are working with, and we're working as hard as we humanly can to deliver this product and to the game to as many people around the world as we possibly can.
Yeah. I've been with the Axie team for over 5 months now. Not that long, but it's kind of felt like a hyperbolic time chamber sort of amount of time, because so much has happened and so much has changed in the Axie universe, right? Like the game has been around for years now, and there were a lot of periods where things were pretty quiet, and you two and the other co-founders had more time to interact and be a little more visible and do some of the fun stuff. And now we've scaled into this time where there's a lot of business stuff that has to be done, a lot of really important big boy business decisions that have to be made that take up a lot of emotional energy and bandwidth that used to be spent doing social stuff. I can see why somebody that's only played Axie for 2 or 3 months has a little bit of a skewed perspective on what the whole ecosystem is like, what the price points are like, just Axie in general. So much has changed in the last half year compared to the 4 years of Axie's history, right?
Yeah, it's really been incredible to see so many people come into the game and to believe in our vision so much that they're leaving their jobs, they are becoming evangelists, and that's also why we when we released this AXS airdrop to our earliest, evangelists, those who had been there since day one, we felt that it was in place, it was fair, because those are the people who they believed in Axie, and we definitely believe in rewarding those who are sticking around, because there will be tough times. There were many hard times in the past where a lot of players, they sold all their assets. That's just the way of how this economy works. Since everything is up to the person or to the player, that means that some people might take bad decisions and lose their funds, which is, of course, unfortunate. But, as the people who are making the game, we have to be true to our vision, and we have to keep building for the long term. And that sometimes means, we have to make some unpopular decisions, and we try to make them and to be as clear about them as we can. But yeah, I mean, I do wish that I could spend as much time on Discord as I did back in the day when we were 1,000 people. But now there are 800,000 people in the Discord. It's almost impossible to chat with everyone.
Hey, come on, man. That's 800,000 new friends you got there.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many great community moderators, and we're scaling the support teams so that people can, take our vision and be the face of the community. And I mean, you're here too. Jeff, of course, even more active on Discord than I ever was back in the day. So maybe you have some thoughts around that.
Jeff's the Discord warrior, man.
Man. I've also reduced my Discord by a lot, but it has been amazing. I was really excited about the collab land integration, which we just launched last week. Right, this is allowing people to prove what Axie assets they own in their wallet. Right, so now it's like, okay, if you own at least 3 Axies, you can speak in general. I think this was a really key step towards bringing back that tight-knit feel in the Discord. I've been hanging out there a little bit more in the last couple of days, and I've noticed that it's a really, really super positive and amazing environment. Even compared to a couple of weeks ago, I think things are much better in there. So yeah, I love the community. Obviously now I try and have tried to scale my communication. So rather than typing in Discord, I'll use my Twitter, which I think a lot of people have been enjoying. But yeah, obviously, right, I think the story about Axie over the next couple of years will be, how do we make sure that our community stays amazing, the best community in crypto, maybe perhaps the world? How do we keep being this amazing community at millions of users? Right? It was kind of easy maybe at tens of thousands, or hundreds, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. Now we're getting to millions, and it's going to be really important that we can keep this amazing community spirit alive. I think part of that will be also in the physical world. I think we're starting to see the world opening up after the pandemic, and I'm really excited. I think that there will be local chapters of Axie Infinity where there will be local meetups, people hanging out with Axie players in their city and making really close connections that way. So I think that might be the next phase. We just saw it happen in New York, where we had, I think, around 400 Axie community members come and hang out and meet each other. So yeah, I think that's also going to be key.
I think we're going to see it again in New York for NFT NYC, now less than a month away. I share that enthusiasm, Jeff. I cannot wait until times are such that we can start moving back into the meet space, focus on some of these physical meetups. And Axie has been a big disruptor in the digital world, right? In this budding metaverse. But I do think it kind of weirdly comes back full circle. What starts digital is going to enter the physical space. And what's the next evolution for our community? I definitely believe that making some real life connections is the next step. Playing Axie by yourself at home is fun. Playing Axie in public with new friends is even more fun.
And even, this is close to your heart, right, Andrew? Tournaments, and I do love that stuff. My background is, of course, also in esports, so I'm incredibly excited to finally see some stuff happening, as you said, in the meet space, where we can meet the best players and see and ask how they think about the game and what can we potentially improve at. So it's just going to be an incredibly exciting next few years. Yeah,
definitely. And while we're on it, since you mentioned esports there, I've been getting this question a lot about the private esports server whitelisting access. And I want to take this opportunity to reiterate that is not the late game strategy for Axie Esports. The only reason that the esports is on a private access server is because of scaling. We had never intended to turn off the challenge server that makes esports possible. That is going to come back to the main game client, which will open up esports for everyone. You'll be able to run a tournament whenever, however you please. Getting AXS support is a little different, but if you want to do a community event or you've got a sponsor and you want to do your own tournament, in the very near future, that won't require any kind of special access or whitelisting. Once we had to shut some stuff off for server scaling, this was sort of the best option given our limitations, right? I think our choices were no esports until scaling is done, or private esports server that's kind of limited until server scaling is done. So obviously we chose the one that lets us do some esports, but I hear all of you that are really excited about these big opens. A lot of you have been wanting to participate and haven't been able to get into the limited slots for some of these niche events. I hear you, totally fair criticisms, but you got to bear with us while we get over this scaling hump, and we're making really good progress there. So as I've been saying to people, if Axie's in alpha, Axie Esports is in like pre-alpha. So this is the very, very tip of the iceberg in terms of what we have planned for esports, and I'm so excited about 2022 and onward. We've got a lot of sponsor interest, we got a lot of team interest, we've got all these pro players now starting to build these storylines. We're seeing Dota pros, Magic the Gathering, Clash Royale, all these pro players from different games coming into our ecosystem and expressing interest and excitement around esports. I'm getting excited just thinking about it, Alex. They can see the shit-eating grin on my face right now. It's this is the stuff that really fuels me, man.
Yeah, same here. But also, I do want to touch on our other creators, right? Because we know that we have so many people in the ecosystem who are amazingly creative. All these artists, even musicians. So we really want to try and see if we can we need to involve them as well a little bit more.
Yeah.
So no leaks there quite yet, but yeah, definitely top of mind there. Axie is more than just esports or a competitive game, right? We know that so many people around the world are playing the game, and not everyone is good at the game either. They just might love Axie enough to even take a tattoo or to host a meetup, or to do all of these other things that, add
these
value
baking pictures, dude. I've been seeing Axie cakes on Twitter the last 2 days, like mind blown. I had no idea we had so many chefs lurking in the Axie community. I mean, shout out to some of our Mystic holders and other longtime influencers and Axie members that have been doing some of these competitions on their own. Like I saw Arctic did an amazing art contest around his Mystic and got some insanely impressive artwork back. This is something that also tip of the iceberg. We have some stuff planned there as well. It's just been a busy sprint recently.
Yeah, I want to give a special shout out to Arctic. Actually, he has an amazing animation contest that's happening right now. I think there's over 750 axes tokens for prizes. So I think that's over $100,000. So if you're an artist, an animator, definitely make sure to check out Axie44's Twitter account and definitely check out that contest. I retweeted it as well, so you can find it on my wall from yesterday.
Very nice. Very exciting stuff. And of course, some of that will trickle into the physical space as we get closer and closer to being able to do, physical tournaments, COVID pending. All that said, though, I wanted to ask about the roadmap a little bit. I had some people ask about, is the roadmap like an actual plan with deadlines that we really try hard to live up to, or would you put the roadmap as more kind of pirate style? It's a guideline. It may or may not happen. This is our dream world. Is it closer to reality or closer to dream world when you open that roadmap and look at something maybe 3 or 4 quarters in the future?
I mean, we need goals, right? I think that's that's where we have to start. A roadmap is always directional. There will be changes to it. I think we've been pretty good at hitting our internal goals, and there are many that aren't even in the roadmap. So in terms of land, that's maybe a thing that we have to revisit, because obviously things are taking quite a long time to build in terms of Axie Origin. But yeah, roadmap updates probably also incoming in the coming months.
Oh, okay. That's pretty exciting. Anything that we can say about land? Obviously, there's always an influx of questions about land. People have been excited about it for so long. The prospects are great. Anything you can share with us at all?
So what I'll share, right, is a little bit of our thought process into land. the LAN team recently just had had a big meeting where we actually just onboarded an amazing new game designer to the LAN team as well. And so basically, the LAN team just had a discussion, right? So there are 3 kind of buckets of activities or aspects of LAN, right? So 1, there is this idea of building up a town or a village, building up your individual plot structures, crafting, harvesting resources, right? So that's one aspect of it. And then there's, this idea of like neutral territory, right? So fighting for control of resources, right? This might require social coordination, playing with your friends, playing with a guild, right? For fighting for control of resources. And then there's the 3rd aspect, which is, I think, right, the most aspirational, which is this idea of, right, opening up land, allowing people to build different experiences and mini games on top of their land, right? So these are the 3 kind of, I think, aspects of LAN gameplay that we have in mind. I think right now we're focusing on the first, which is just making sure that, people can, harvest resources and craft and build out these beautiful structures, and making sure that experience is really fun and really beautiful and really rewarding for our community. The second and third aspects, right, those are kind of a little bit more off into the future, but they're also things that I think people are really super excited about. So I think that's like a little bit of a glimpse, right? So right now we're just making sure that the first bucket of activities and verbs is really beautiful and well defined, and then we can move on, right, to 2 and 3 in the future. So so that's how we're thinking about things, and I think like. We definitely want to show off some of our progress and our work at the right time. And so I think we'll have an internal discussion about the timing on that in the coming weeks or so.
Yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning that when we released the land version or the alpha version of land late last year, we didn't have 1.9 million daily active players, right? So that also means that we might revisit a little bit of our initial thought process for land. So naturally, we don't want this to be gated too much to just owning land. There could be other ways that people could play on land, even if you didn't own it. Now that might be tied to the resources that you're gathering, or other ways of designing the game. And we have dedicated game designers who are working full-time on this. That not only goes for land, but also for Axie Origin. So there's a lot of stuff happening in the back. We just prefer to be a little bit more cagey about it and don't want to share everything too early, because it also ruins a little bit of the fun, have we found. That if we're leaking too much, then for the first of all, it's not as fun to see it played. And you kind of, when it's being released, then suddenly, I've already seen this, I've already experienced this. What happens? Was that it? Like these are always things that you have to weigh when you're considering leaking things.
Another angle on that, I've mentioned this on my personal stream. I'm curious to bring it up here and see what you guys think. But I think when it comes to a game of this scale, right, 2 million daily active users in blockchain, GameFi, NFT gaming, right, this is unprecedented. And I think the playbook for communications is one that we're kind of figuring out and writing as we go along, because it's not the same as the traditional centralized gaming world where there's very clear IP ownership, very clear owners, and pretty straightforward mainstream rails to pursue legal action if somebody rips off your IP or tries to copy what you're doing or has a violation in that way. In crypto, there are a lot of copycats, right? The lack of black boxes and the general transparency is one of our greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses. It allows the crypto blockchain space to build very quickly and take what exists and just iterate upon that foundation. But at the same time, it does make it easy for bad actors and copycats to kind of take what we've done, tweak it a little bit, and then launch it as sort of a lowbrow copycat looking to siphon off some of our users. I feel like in crypto, there's less of an incentive to leak stuff and share things before they're ready, because in some ways it kind of gives those competitors like more of an advantage to start reverse engineering. They really want to look under the hood and see what we're working on. Do you guys agree? Like, is there some truth to that? Is that some of the hesitance to share these updates prematurely before they're ready to launch?
You're muted, Jeff.
I think it's more so about us wanting to retain a lot of the special magic around launches, right? So we don't want to I think ruin. I think even traditional game companies have started to ruin their launches of their games by showing a little bit too much in advance. In my opinion, I think it's this really special and difficult thing to balance, especially in crypto where more transparency is typically seen as a better thing. That said, right, I don't see us as having competitors. I don't see the other NFT gaming companies that are out there I don't see those as our competitors. I see our competitors as things like Uber, and Netflix and then Airbnb. Our competitors are, I think that's how I think. I only look at it as our competitors as things that are much larger than us actually. So yeah, but yeah, I think, it's a balancing thing, right? We want to give leaks and keep up the excitement, but we also want to retain a lot of excitement for the launches, and we want to really delight and show things that are new. That said, yeah, could we do more leaks? It's possible, right? So that's definitely something that our community always asks for, but right, it's a balancing act where we don't want to necessarily give them out like candy or water, right? Because then it kind of cheapens them.
Well, shout out to Madfish C on Reddit, because his really thoughtful question posted 15 hours ago, when leaks? So there you go. You're right on the pulse with the community, Jeff. Very good.
Amazing. That's really deep. I'm glad we managed to cover that in this stream.
Oh my. So how about balance patches? It's been a little while since we saw a big balance patch, maybe worth reiterating here as well. Big responsibility, right? In a game where axies are assets and people are making investments, buffs and nerfs get a little bit complicated. And there's just a high degree of responsibility that comes along with making those changes. Can we expect a balance patch? Are crits ever going to be changed? I can't tell you how many emails and inbounds I have of people complaining about crits, Jeff.
Yeah, so balancing is something that we take really seriously. I believe it's actually something that the community has a lot of say in. Why? Because when we're balancing, we're looking at the data that's created by the community, right? So if people are using things like too much or, just very it's just apparent from the data if something's a little bit too cheesy, a little bit too easy to use, or something that makes the game a little bit unfun. So yeah, we're looking at doing a balancing patch for season 19. We have an internal deadline for when we want to launch it. I'm not gonna leak it here, just in case as things pop up. We actually have a kind of a crowded schedule. But yeah, season 19 is on the way, and we expect to do a balancing patch with it. And yeah, when we balance, we definitely take a look at combination of the data as well as some of the feedback. We're really excited about it. I do think that around the balancing is important and necessary right now to keep the game a little bit fresh and fun.
Yeah, Sirius has only been the best card in the game for how long now? Certainly since the entire tenor that I've been aboard.
I'll admit that balancing energy, anything to do with energy gain or steel and poison, these are some of the hardest things to put to balance.
Yeah, energy steal specifically, because it's a swing, right? It's a -1 and a +1. It's like energy swing can make or break matches just in a single card play. I want to go back to Collab Land real quick. We touched on it very briefly in another answer. You guys mentioned that this is part of the future of Discord, right? This allows us to set these special permissions where it looks at wallets and says, oh, hey, you've got 3 axies. Okay, now you get access to general. Is there more that we can expand on this? I guess I want to give a quick PSA and make Programmatically Pull happy. Reminder, never enter your seed phrase on any website. If a website asks you for your secret recovery phrase, that is the 12 English words that back up your wallet. It is a scam, 100%. No one from Axie Infinity will ever ask for your seed phrase. Reputable managers will never ask for your secret recovery phrase. If anyone's asking for it, that should be your number one red flag that they are trying to steal your stuff. So stay safe out there, folks. Keep that secret recovery phrase a secret. That's why we renamed it from seed phrase to secret recovery phrase. It is the skeleton key to get into your wallet and all of your holdings. You need to keep that thing safe. You got to back it up. If your house burns down, you're going to want to have a copy somewhere else. Go put it in a safety deposit box. Get yourself a fireproof safe. seriously, take precautions. I saw on Twitter actually yesterday that somebody said their house burned down, they lost their computer and their backup secret recovery phrase. That's it. Your stuff's gone. So seriously, treat this stuff with the importance that it matters. But yeah, collab land. What else does this open up for us?
I mean, before that, I also want to reiterate what you said. When we look at the data for, when we see how many people are new to crypto and Axie, it's around 50% have never had a private key, they have no idea or secret seed phrase. They don't know anything about crypto. They come into this because they see that it's a new opportunity. They want to learn about new tech. And a lot of them are coming into it because they get recommended by friends. If you're recommending your friends to come into this ecosystem, I actually feel like you have an obligation to teach them a little bit more about like behaving responsibly online. Like this is a brand new way of owning your assets. The fact is that when you're using crypto technology, you are responsible for your own actions. Now that means that there are really, really nice benefits to it. That means that we can do some really cool stuff. But it also means that there's a lot of responsibility here. And I think that that's important to touch on because we can't give you back your assets if you lose them.
Yeah,
that's just a fact.
It breaks my heart every time somebody says, well, you guys have made such an amazing game. Surely you can create some amazing way for me to recover my stuff. And that's just not how blockchain works. I'm complimented that you think we're skilled enough to do that, but that would require like hacking the blockchain. Like that's the whole point of this immutable ledger. It's immutable. If we could just change it, then we wouldn't be doing anything novel here. So anyway.
Yeah, I think, touching on what you said about collab land, it's actually a way for people to show others, like when they have these tags, that they have some real skin in the game here. What we found on Discord is that there's oftentimes a lot of noise from people who might have other motivations to spread, negative words about Axie. So sometimes when you see for example, the economy channel or in general, or in random like the trading channel, you might see that people have very strong opinions about Axie, about why it's going to go up, why it's going to go down. But it might turn out that they don't have any skin in the game. They don't own any Axies, they don't own AXS, and they're actually there to function or to freak you out about something that is irrelevant in the long term. Like there will always be bad and good things that happen. But at the same time, you really need to be careful about where you get your information. I mean, as humans growing up on the internet, we always learn about being source critical. I think that's one of the most important things that I would like to point out, that it's very easy to craft a narrative about a good thing or a bad thing. But at the same time, we need to take responsibility, do the research, and now at least on Discord, you can see that, hey, this person, they at least they own 3 Axies, at least they own 10 Axies. If they have a Mystic Axie, well, they've spent $100,000 or something on a game character. Like that probably means that, they should be more bullish on what's happening here, or they should have a more deeper understanding of why did they make that decision. Now that's really important for me, at least.
Definitely. Yeah, I'll also say that you can actually, it's not just, sometimes people might not have skin in the game. They might actually have skin against the game where, right, like you can actually bet against Axie Infinity's success, right, by shorting the AXS token, for example, shorting SLP, and then hiring people or creating bots to spread negative energy within the Axie ecosystem. This is actually something that, right, this is a new problem that has actually, most games have never witnessed before, right? So it's pretty cool. Like I always love facing new problems, but sometimes they're a little bit right, they need to be communicated. People need to be educated on these things because these are not things that are necessarily too intuitive.
Definitely. Speaking of intuitive, I love this question from one Redditor, Time Gambler. He says, he or she says, I was wondering, do your family members and non-Axie related friends understand the life-changing impact that you're having on the world in terms of touching millions of lives? I like this question a lot, and maybe I'll go first. No, my family doesn't really get it. No one else in my family owns cryptocurrency. They're happy that I'm happy, but they get the tip of the iceberg. They can see the look on my face when I start talking about it, but No, I don't think they really get it. I don't know that they're ever going to get it. And I've sort of given up trying to explain it to them. I'm spending my energy trying to explain it to people that are really engaged and trying to learn it. So I'm curious if you guys have sort of a similar experience. I mean, that was why meeting Jeff for the first time was so fun, because I finally had somebody to talk to in real life about all this axie energy. I don't have any real life axie friends in my day to day, you know?
You'll have many soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, go first. How is your family?
I mean, my family, yeah, they understand what's happening. I don't think anyone, I mean, okay, maybe I'll take that back. They might understand some numbers, but it's really weird, I think, to consider the implications of what it is that we're trying to achieve here. I mean, when we started Axie, we set out to build a game using NFTs because we felt that NFTs would really change the way that games are being played forever. And then we discovered that, you know, it's way more than that. This is actually about owning your game items and your digital identity for the long term. Like the game, the stories that you build inside these games, they should belong to the players themselves. I mean, I might say that I've played competitive Warcraft 3, Dota 2, but there's literally no proof of that. Other than some random maybe Russian blog about like mentioning my nickname in 2005. So like this is history that I actually should own or have some proof of. And I think that's a lot of what we're trying to do here with Axie. And then it turns out that you can do a lot of other cool things too in terms of business model innovation and align the incentives for those who are playing the game and those who are developing the game. So what I've started to, you know, we've said that Axie is a nation really a long time now, but I think it's starting to click a little bit when you see the numbers that are flowing inside the ecosystem. So when we say that there's over $2 billion worth of, you know, NFTs that have been traded inside Axie, we say that, okay, the nation state of Axie is taking a tax rate on that, like, which is 4.25%. And the rest of that is, you know, being transacted between the players or the inhabitants of that nation. So when you then compare it to, for example, Norway or the US, like there's a lot of merchant activity that's happening there. There's a lot of economic activity, but the state is taking a massive amount of, you know, tax there. So I think that's a very elegant way of explaining it to people who have no idea what we're making. So we're making a nation. There's a lot of economic activity, and we are being incentivized because we can take a small cut on that. But of course, like it takes a long time for people to really understand and to grasp the potential of what's really happening here, because such a game at this scale has never been made. A lot of people have attempted to make it, but they haven't had the same level of infrastructure that we have available to us. And I think it's just incredibly exciting. And I'm not motivated by really money anymore because, you know, we work in crypto. Prices go up and down all the time. This is much more about how can we, you know, impact maybe the future of gaming to go a whole, you know, to really take a look at it like that.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I think like, you know, my Korean side of the family, they kind of understand a little bit more, right? Because the Koreans are a little bit more into crypto. So my cousins are starting to dabble, and you know. But yeah, it's definitely it's hard to fathom. It's hard for me to even fathom, and I've been here right for 1,000 days. So yeah, you know, my real life friends are also, you know, they're starting to get super excited. You know, people or something.
Okay. Thanks, Google. Okay, we're gonna make a new meeting real quick. Let me just go ahead and that's embarrassing. Send a new link over to the boys. We'll be right back. Hopefully they rejoin quickly here. There's one. Looks like we got a discussion here.
Okay, nawala sila. Hintayin natin bumalik. Mamaya sasagutin ko yung mga questions ninyo. Bibigyan ko kayo ng summary sa Tagalog sa mga nagre-request na gustong Tagalog nila. Mamaya bibigyan ko kayo ng summary niya. Pag-usapan natin yan maya-maya. Okay, balik muna tayo.
Yeah. didn't affect me. And I had this moment of like, whoa, it's working. The lurkers are lurking. Like that was such a cool moment to see somebody that, this is somebody I played soccer with when I was like 10 years old, you know, just someone lurking in my network, and to see that stuff kind of come full circle. That is really cool. We are getting towards the end here, but I had a few more quick questions I wanted to get out. Ronan mobile wallet. Are we working on that? Is there any kind of ETA or update on that? As of right now, there is no mobile wallet, and that does remain one of the more common phishing scams I think I see. People are really excited about a mobile wallet. What can we say about this?
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon.
That's what we'll say.
So keep an eye out. But until that official announcement comes, folks, seriously be careful. There is no official Ronan mobile wallet. So anything labeled as such, pretty damn sus. So stay tuned for that official announcement.
I think for these things, it's important to understand that, you know, security is one of our main concerns, and something that, you know, keeps me up at night. What happens if we release a product and then the code is bad? So this is not something that we want to rush into. It's taking its time, but it's going to be worth it when it gets there.
Absolutely. All right, so one of the maybe tougher questions to round this out, but it's one that's popped up recently. There was a recent sort of FUD surrounding this, but I want to talk about you two specifically, your relationship with YGG. YGG, Yield Guild Games, biggest Axie scholarship, big time presence in the Philippines. They've been growing and scaling like crazy. You two are involved to some degree with that organization. Some folks seem a little bit concerned about that. What can we say to quell some of those fears about any sort of unethical behavior?
You know, I think I'll start here because for me personally, I am an advisor to YGG, and I'm also a seed investor. And this is something that I have disclosed publicly on my Twitter, you know, several months ago. It's even in their white paper. And what that just means is that there is even more scrutiny on my own like personal behavior, that it would be obvious if I ever gave anyone an unfair advantage. And that also means that any other investments that I'm making in competitors or in other guilds, for example, there needs to be that same standard, right? So luckily these things can be viewed on chain. So it would be very clear if anyone got an unfair advantage. But you know, it's just, I want people to succeed in the space that I'm operating in. And I do really respect Gabby and YGG and everyone else who is building on top of Axie. So naturally, as you know, one of the founders of a successful project, I can take that liberty and help them and you know, give them advice as to, on the more, you know, the business side of things, like what worked for me, what worked for Axie, should you do things in the same way? But that obviously doesn't mean that you know, we would give them any sort of tangible benefit, because it would be so clear, I think, for everyone who is looking at, you know, the data.
Jeff?
I mean, I think working in the space, right? Like the only thing that we have is our reputation, our integrity. So yeah, I think like, you know, anyone who tries to make allegations against us, they need to come with hard evidence, because they're really making, right? Like that's all we have is our reputation at the end of the day. So if anyone to go after, right, like Psych Out or Alex, that really, like, I feel like they're right going after each and every one of us. So like there's literally no incentive for us to do anything that's seen as unethical, right? There's really no incentive. Like we're not doing this is not about money for us anymore, right? At least like this is about like creating a new digital nation, changing gaming forever, making sure that Axie goes down in history and that we live up to our potential, right? These are the things that we're going to think about when we're on our deathbed. It's not going to be about like, okay, like trying to optimize for every little dollar here and there, right? And the biggest risk to this entire movement failing is, right, some kind of like ethical concerns, right? So it's like there is literally no incentive for us to ever engage in any behavior that would bring any amount of dishonor to the entire Axie community and Axie nation. So I want to like say that that's really, really important. to us, and it really upsets me if anyone like makes any kind of like insinuation without evidence.
I think it's also worth noting that we operate in a space where things are very transparent, right? I mean, we saw that, for example, OpenSea, they had a case where a person was buying some assets a little bit too soon based on some information that they had. Of course, that's not what we allow internally in Axie, and we have strict guidelines for that. And it's just that these are very standard practices in any serious type of business. So we don't really want to focus too much on that. But these are natural things as a company is growing.
Yeah. And I think in crypto and blockchain in general, like legitimacy and trust, these are still kind of a precious, rare resource, right? There's a lot of scams out there. There are a lot of anon projects that have sort of neutral / unknown intentions. So having a project like Axie that has gotten to where it is, I kind of agree with you, Jeff. I think like the long-term incentives, the most impact can be made, even the most money can be made long-term by scaling this ship and getting it in the hands of more users, and kind of evangelizing blockchain and cryptocurrency for good, and highlighting all the positive aspects of this technology, and how much it can disrupt in a positive way. 1.5, 1.9, maybe 2 billion people globally that don't have great access to financial tools. So it seems pretty clear to me that our incentive is like squeaky clean, as much as possible, right? Like it's hard to get to this point and still be, a reputable, ethical organization. So why would we want to throw that away now, right? You guys spent a lot of years in the bear market to get to this point. I imagine we've got a bright future still to come, right? A lot of history that hasn't been written yet. There's still so much more to go.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I honestly believe that we're just getting started here. And why can I say that after all these years? Well, it's related to everything that we've had to build to get here. I mean, now the fun is about to start. Now we can actually have these events that we always wanted to do. And we can show people what the game should be about in the long term. I think, Axie will be here when I'm dead. Like, that's the potential for this new game that we're making here. It's more about, the community and we're the stewards of this game for now. And in the future, things might be different, right? But we still need to get to that point where Axie Infinity can, live by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we've passed the hour mark, and this tends to be where we try to wrap these up. Anything that either of you want to talk about or get out there that didn't come up in our fielded questions from the audience?
I just want to say, thank you to each and every one of you for coming in and popping in for this chat. It really means a lot to us. We care about each and every one of you. So thank you for everything you do, whether that's just playing the game, creating content, tweeting on Twitter, being an active community member on Discord, breeding Axies, holding AXS tokens, trading on the marketplace, right? Each and every one of you is doing something really amazing for this movement. So yeah, thank you. And I think it's important to just, right, have good habits, have a consistent schedule, and to think long term. Try and get 1% better each day as a Lunasian, and yeah, we're all going to succeed together.
I like it. Alex, what do you got? You got a tall order to match the Jeff hype there.
I mean, I don't think I can match Jeff here. It's definitely much more motivational speaker than I am to the community. I mean, I do tweet out sometimes. I have some good tweet threads, but I guess I'll leave that to Jeff and take the more serious approach in this one. But yeah, I mean, definitely appreciate everyone hanging out with us and experience this new tech. Learning about it, keeping an open mind, and yeah, just teaching other people about what's happening here and sharing it. I mean, maybe we can change things here. That's what I'm working towards.
Yeah, there's a lot of education still to be done, folks, both internally inside the Axie community, all of these new users coming in, so many new users about to come in. We all have to do our share to decentralize this education process, right? Try to spread the good word, spread these simple tips, try to help our fellow Lunasians stay safe. And feel comfortable, right? Imagine, I said this before in a past podcast, but remember your first bear market, right? Imagine if you just set up your first bank account 3 months ago and you're seeing these 10 to 20% fluctuations on a weekly basis. That's really scary stuff. I opened my first savings account when I was like 6 years old with USD. There were no fluctuations in that. And it was still a little bit scary because you're handing your money to what feels like an unknown entity. So try to keep that in mind when you're talking to new Lunasians. We need your help as evangelists as well externally, right? There are so many folks that still don't understand the glories of blockchain and cryptocurrency. So many folks in the West and North America and Western Europe that have kind of turned their nose up at it. You look at the traditional gaming space and there's a lot of misinformation being reposted over there, and we need your help, right? It's a bit of an arms race to counteract that misinformation and FUD against cryptocurrency and blockchain with facts and good information and evangelism. So just by tuning into this stream, you're already equipping yourself with the latest and greatest knowledge here in the Axie universe. So sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. Stay tuned. We've got a lot more in the pipeline. The rest of 2021 is going to be very exciting. Next year, we're ready to knock it out of the park and add a few zeros to this user base. But until next time, we'll have another dev chat at some point.